question has popped up a couple times, 2 or 3 people on here. I want to be at Sports Center. How do I get there? I want to expand that to, I want my dream job. I want to be a reporter for the Post. I want to be at Sports Center. I want to have a 5:30 desk at NBC. How do I get there?
None of us know how to get there.
I never made it. I have no clue.
I was once offered a job in LA. I had no idea what that was. But, so I did something kind of sneaky. I have family in California. So the only other market that ever interested me was Los Angeles, because I wanted to go up. And I like LA. So I was visiting family in California a few years ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can take a tour of KNBC-LA. And we're walking around, and the assignment editor there was giving me and my uncle a tour. I had an escort, as you know. I didn't drive when I was in California. But anyway, walking around, and we passed this office, and it says production supervisor. And I was like, I don't mean to interrupt you, but can we talk to her for a second? Well, I don't know if any of you know, but at Channel 6, we have some state-of-the-art in our production department called Ross Overdrive. Our newscasts are automated. We don't have camera people. We have a prompter person, and that's it. There's no audio person. There's no switcher person. I mean, I do it all, basically. If you ever want to see it, set the tour or something like that. Anyway, she was surprised to learn that someone of my age knew how to do something like that. And she said, yeah, you should send me your work. And I did. I came back the following year to visit my family. And she's like, I gave her another demo, and she's like, are you ready to come to California? And I was like, what? No way. And the big thing was, I'd just been promoted to senior director here in Omaha. And it wasn't a full-time job. It was for vacation and seasonal work. And I can't move to LA on vacation seasonal work. So basically something little like that. Like, I was like, can I have a tour of your station? And they were like, okay, like, why not? You know, and I picked the NBC affiliate because I work for NBC here in Omaha. And I got to meet Betsy Clark, the director supervisor at KNBC-LA, and, you know, we still talk. But yeah, so that's the closest I ever got.
It's like anything else. I mean, you have to stand out. A word that's been mentioned here. Those people at ESPN are not just out of school. They worked their way up. They were outstanding at what they did at a local station or at a local newspaper or things like that, and their work got noticed. Most likely, and it's unfortunate, most likely they were in a major market, or they were even out there. And I'll tell you, quite honestly, a lot of the people that work at NBC and start on the way up, some of them, or the other networks as well, they went to Columbia University, they went to Harvard, they went to schools that are in the area, and they got internships. They were pages at NBC. They got to know people at NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, Fox, whatever it is, and they find their way in. The best way to do it is to be the camel that gets your nose under into the tent. Make a contact, find somebody. Is there somebody there who's willing to critique some of your work? Is there somebody there that you can set up a once every couple months correspondence with, or that you can send a file to and say, can you check this over? Get started as local as you can. The Gateway here. Write for it. Develop your skills. Develop your ethic. Develop your style. Work on that. And just keep trying to move your way up, and that's the best thing. Jobs don't usually come looking for you. You have to go look for them.
In the school communication, on the journalism side, they have an internship requirement. If you want to walk out with your degree in journalism, you're going to do an internship. If you are going to teach high school, for example, you have to do student teaching. That's part of right. I mean, your last semester, last term, you have to go in and prove that you got the skill set. That's the bare minimum. You need to find the spots. You need to go in beyond the required class, beyond the requirements for the job. You need to go in and figure out what find those people. I recall distinctly when I was doing my PhD work up north. up in North Dakota State up there. I had a student who wanted me to write a letter of recommendation for her for ESPN because she was going to do a summer internship program. And then I just have kind of kept that in the back of my head, like, here's a student who's going to Fargo, North Dakota, but she's willing to make the move to Atlanta now to do an internship at the end. I don't know if she got it or not. I've never heard from her since, but that kind of stuck in my head. How do you get to ESPN? You go to ESPN.
ESPN's in Bristol.
You go
I was
there.
in Bristol. I thought it was in
CNN is in Atlanta.
God, I screw things up. I'm horrible. Just now. Regardless, you go where it is. You just get up and you do it. You know, that's the biggest thing I could suggest. We've had a question come up, and it actually aligns with something that Matt's talked about a couple of times. The question in particular is, how valuable would a bilingual journalist be to any news organization? And I want to expand it to a conversation you'd like to bring up, which is, how do I make myself stand out beyond having a journalism degree?
Yeah.
What else do I need?
Well, and that totally ties to the previous question, because one of the truths about how you move up in newspapers, for example, is know a second language to the point where you can be completely conversational in that language. I mean, that is the difference a lot of times between a reporter who would stay at the World Herald and somebody who would end up working at the New York Times, right? So that is always, I say that every semester when I come into this class. If you're interested in a foreign language, you should take it as many semesters as possible, and you should consider that journalism training. It will be. It will come into, it will factor into your career. And I would suggest two, three, that would be huge and help you move up the ladder. The first is Spanish. The second would be Mandarin. And the third would be Arabic. I mean, if you want to be a foreign correspondent for an American news organization and you know Arabic, you don't even have to be good.
Yeah,
You
I'm
can
gonna
suck.
hire you.
And you are going to get a job. I mean, it is just stunning. That is one of the easiest shortcuts that I, not that learning Arabic, I don't know Arabic, I'm sure it's extremely difficult to learn, but I would suggest that if you want to go in that direction in journalism.
Richard Engel, who's NBC's chief foreign correspondent now, and speaks fluent Arabic, left school, graduated from school, not speaking a word of Arabic. Well, he may have had a little bit in college. Moved to the Middle East, supported himself with odd jobs and things like that while he learned the language. He did study journalism, knew he wanted to be a correspondent, became completely fluent in the language, and is now NBC's chief foreign correspondent. And I maintain does a better job of covering the political situation in the Middle East than anybody else on television and most of the people in newspapers, because he can talk to people in their language. He doesn't need an interpreter. He doesn't need a translator. He talks to them, interviews them with all of the nuances that every language has in their language, and that makes him absolutely invaluable.
And it's
But he taught himself. I mean, well, he didn't teach himself, but he went there to learn.
It's not even about language. It's partially about language, but the idea that language allows you insight into
Yes.
a culture. It allows you to connect in a way to a person that I would never be able to do. I mean, one of the most dehumanizing journalistic things that I can think of is a translator. And I've been repeatedly in that situation. It is hard to interview somebody with a translator. It becomes a far different thing if you understand the language. There's another great example, and I can't think of this guy's name, but how he got into journalism at the very highest levels is he moved to China. He just moved to China, and he learned the language, and he learned the culture, and he started freelancing for newspapers, and then he started freelancing for magazines. Now he's written about 5 books about China. I mean, the guy's a millionaire, based on the idea that he just took a different path. I mean, that's if I pass on nothing else today, it's the idea that if you see everybody galloping in a certain direction in journalism, you just go the other way. I mean, it is so beneficial to you just to keep that always in mind. And I think there are examples about that with language, and I just think just in writing style and anything that you do, it's really smart to remember that.
And how brave are you to do that?
Dr. Wilson, any thoughts on what do you need besides journalism degree to get in?
I think you need, well, for one thing, you have to be willing to do your time, and I think that idea has kind of come up through various people here. You know, you're not going to go out and get a job working for the World Herald, covering the Husker football games initially, you know, if you want to be in sports, for example. So there's sort of this idea that you know, you need to work, you need to be willing to do the sort of mundane things, you need to be willing to work weekends and nights, and it can be kind of a tough schedule sometimes, but if you really want to get ahead in this field, that's part of the game.